I felt my chest tighten as he laughed, the sound echoing through the sleek, glass-walled office like a punch to my gut. You really thought you were indispensable, Isla Ray? Harrison's smirk was sharp, condescending, and utterly ruthless. I think it's time you learned your place. Every eye in the room was on me. My carefully crafted project proposal, the one I had poured months of sweat and late nights into, was dismissed with a casual wave of his hand. My stomach lurched. My hands trembled. The edges of the polished conference table dug into my palms. How dare he? I tried to respond, to defend myself, but the words caught in my throat. Colleagues shifted uncomfortably in their leather chairs. Some avoided my gaze entirely. Others barely suppressed smirks, enjoying the spectacle of my public humiliation. Harrison leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, clearly savoring every second. This wasn't just feedback. This was a performance. He wanted everyone to see me break, to watch me crumble under his authority. My humiliation was complete. The room felt too hot, too small, too cruel. And yet, somewhere deep inside, some tiny, sharp part of me was already igniting. A spark that would become a wildfire. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, Harrison. I hadn't always hated him. There was a time when I admired Harrison deeply. When I first joined the company 5 years ago, he was everything I wanted to be: confident, successful, respected. I worked harder than anyone else, staying late every night, coming in on weekends, volunteering for impossible projects nobody else wanted. I believed in loyalty. I believed that dedication mattered, that if you gave everything to your work, it would be recognized. I spent countless hours perfecting presentations, landing difficult clients, solving problems that should have been above my pay grade. I did it all because I thought I was building something, building a future. Harrison noticed my efforts. He praised me publicly, gave me bigger responsibilities, made me feel valued. I thought we were a team. I thought my hard work meant something to him. I was wrong, so incredibly, painfully wrong. Looking back now, I could see the signs I'd missed. How he took credit for my ideas in meetings. How he minimized my contributions to clients. How he smiled when I struggled but never offered help. I'd been too busy working to notice I was being used. That dream, that naive belief in meritocracy and fairness, died the moment he laughed at me in that conference room. I walked out of that office building in a daze. My legs moved automatically while my mind raced 1,000 miles ahead. The afternoon sun felt too bright. The sounds of traffic too loud. Everything was sharp and overwhelming. I walked 3 blocks before I even realized where I was going. My fists clenched at my sides. My jaw ached from grinding my teeth. People passed me on the sidewalk, lost in their own worlds, completely unaware that mine had just shattered. How could he do this? After everything I'd given? After every sacrifice, every late night, every weekend I'd missed with family and friends? But beneath the hurt and betrayal, something else was growing, something cold and calculating. They think this is the end, I thought, stopping at a crosswalk. They think I'll disappear quietly, broken and defeated. My reflection stared back at me from a shop window. I looked tired, angry, but not broken, never broken. This isn't the end, I realized with sudden, crystal clarity. This is only the beginning. Harrison had humiliated me publicly. He'd thrown away years of my dedication like garbage. He'd made a fatal mistake. He'd underestimated me completely. And I was going to make him regret every single second of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, a notepad, and 3 cups of coffee growing cold. My mind wouldn't stop working, analyzing, planning. Harrison's company had always seemed invincible to me. But now, looking at it from the outside with clear, angry eyes, I saw what I'd been too close to notice before. There were cracks everywhere. Harrison was brilliant at presenting success, but terrible at maintaining it. He neglected long-term client relationships, focusing only on flashy new accounts. He cut corners on quality, banking on reputation to carry him through. He surrounded himself with yes-men who never questioned his decisions. I pulled up client lists, contract timelines, market analyses. Everything I'd helped build over 5 years was suddenly data I could use. There was a specific segment he'd been ignoring, mid-sized businesses that needed personalized attention. They were profitable but required actual work, actual care. Harrison considered them beneath his attention. But I didn't. Those clients were gold mines if handled properly. They valued relationships, quality, and consistency, everything Harrison no longer provided. If I acted strategically, if I moved carefully, I could capitalize on this gap. I could build something right under his nose. My hands stopped shaking. My mind cleared. I had found my opening. I needed advice before making any moves. The next morning, I called Leora Castellanos, my former mentor from graduate school. She'd left corporate life years ago to start her own consulting firm and had always told me to reach out if I needed guidance. This seemed like the right time. We met at a quiet coffee shop downtown. Leora listened carefully as I explained everything: the humiliation, the dismissal, the opportunity I'd identified. Her dark eyes studied me intently. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. "You're talking about competing directly with your former employer," she said finally. "You understand how difficult that will be, the risks involved?" I nodded. "I understand, but I also understand that I'm good at what I do, better than Harrison ever gave me credit for." Leora smiled slowly. "I believe in your vision, Isla Ray. I always have. You're one of the smartest people I've taught." Relief flooded through me. Validation from someone I respected meant everything in that moment. "But you need to be careful," she continued, her voice serious. "Strategic, patient. This isn't about revenge, it's about building something sustainable." "I can be patient," I assured her. Leora reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Then let's talk about how you're going to do this properly." I spent the next 2 weeks gathering intelligence. Not illegally, I was careful about that. But I used my industry knowledge, my connections, my understanding of Harrison's operation. I called old colleagues casually, asking innocent questions about current projects. I browsed public client reviews, looking for patterns of dissatisfaction. Every detail went into a spreadsheet: client complaints about delayed responses, projects that had gone over budget, contracts that hadn't been renewed. I created a comprehensive map of Harrison's weaknesses, and the picture was even worse than I'd suspected. His operation was held together by reputation and inertia, nothing more. Late one night, I discovered something crucial. A major client, Westbridge Industries, had submitted 3 formal complaints in the past 6 months, all ignored. Their contract was up for renewal in 45 days, and based on their communication patterns, they were actively unhappy. Harrison was too busy chasing bigger accounts to notice he was about to lose a 6-figure client. This was it. This was my entry point. Westbridge was exactly the kind of mid-sized company that needed dedicated attention. If I could approach them correctly, offer them what Harrison never would, actual personalized service and care, they might listen. My heart raced as I stared at my screen. 1 client could become 5. 5 could become 20. This was how empires started. Harrison held a company-wide meeting that week. I still had friends inside who told me about it. Apparently, he spent an hour bragging about recent successes, taking credit for work other people had done. He mentioned closing a prestigious new account, never acknowledging the team that had actually landed it. Classic Harrison. "We're stronger than ever," he'd reportedly said, standing at the front of the conference room with that smug smile I knew so well. "Some people can't handle the pressure of excellence. That's why they leave. But we don't need weak links." My friends said some people had looked uncomfortable when he said that. Others had nodded along enthusiastically. I smiled when I heard this, sitting alone in my apartment. Let him be arrogant. Let him bask in his false sense of security. Arrogance made people sloppy, made them miss obvious threats. Harrison thought he'd gotten rid of a problem when he dismissed me. He had no idea he'd created his own competition. While he was performing for his audience, I was working, researching, planning, building the foundation of something he'd never see coming until it was too late. His arrogance wasn't just annoying anymore. It was fuel. Every condescending word, every dismissive gesture, every public humiliation, all of it fed the calm, calculated fire building inside me. "Keep talking, Harrison. Keep celebrating. Your time is running out." I made my first client contact 3 weeks after leaving Harrison's company. I dressed professionally, rehearsed my pitch carefully, and reached out to Westbridge Industries. I didn't badmouth Harrison. That would seem petty and unprofessional. Instead, I focused on what I could offer them specifically. The operations manager, Marcus Chen, wait, I need to use a different name. The operations manager, Dante Williams, agreed to meet me for coffee. He seemed cautious but curious. "I'll be honest," he said after I introduced myself. "We've been frustrated with our current provider, but making a switch is risky." "I understand," I replied calmly. "That's exactly why I'm not asking you to switch immediately. I'm asking for a chance to show you what personalized service actually looks like. Let me handle one small project. No commitment. If I don't exceed your expectations, you don't owe me anything." Dante studied me for a long moment. I could see him weighing options, calculating risks. This was the crucial moment. Would he take a chance on someone unknown, or stick with the familiar disappointment of Harrison's company? Finally, he nodded slowly. "One project, small scope, show me what you can do." I shook his hand, keeping my expression professional despite the victory singing through my veins. "Thank you, you won't regret this." That night, I created a detailed strategic blueprint. I wasn't just winging this. Every step needed to be planned, documented, and executed perfectly. I mapped out timelines, potential clients, projected revenue, operational costs. This wasn't just about beating Harrison. It was about building something sustainable and real. My business model was simple: provide exceptional service to mid-sized businesses that larger firms neglected. Be responsive, reliable, and genuinely invested in client success. Build relationships instead of just transactions. Everything Harrison's company had stopped doing years ago. I estimated I needed 5 solid clients to launch properly, 10 to be stable, 20 to be genuinely competitive. The timeline was aggressive. I wanted meaningful progress within 6 months. Ambitious, but possible if I worked smart and stayed focused. The financial projections were tight. I'd need to reinvest most early profits back into the business. Live lean, work constantly. It would be exhausting and risky. But looking at those numbers, seeing the path forward laid out clearly, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. Real, tangible hope. I committed to the plan, no half measures, no backup options. I was going all in on this. I saved the document, closed my laptop, and allowed myself a small smile. The first bold move was made. Now I just needed to prove I could deliver. The Westbridge project consumed my next 2 weeks. I poured everything into it, worked 18-hour days, triple-checked every detail, communicated constantly with Dante's team. This wasn't just a project. It was proof of concept, evidence that I could deliver what I promised. When I presented the final results, Dante's expression shifted from professional politeness to genuine surprise. "This is exceptional work, Isla Ray," he said, scrolling through the presentation. "Honestly, this is better than anything we've received in 2 years. My heart soared, but I kept my voice steady. "Thank you. This is the level of attention I provide to every client." 3 days later, Dante called me. "We want to move forward with a full contract, 6 months initially with option to extend." I had to sit down. My first real client, real revenue, real validation that this crazy plan might actually work. I would be honored, I managed. The contract wasn't huge, mid-5 figures, but it was legitimate, professional, real. I signed the papers in my apartment, my hand steady and sure. Somewhere across town, Harrison had no idea he'd just lost a valuable client. He probably hadn't even noticed they'd gone quiet. But I noticed. I documented everything. This was victory number 1. Many more would follow. Over the next month, I watched Harrison's company from the outside. It wasn't hard. Industry gossip travels fast, and I still had friends inside. What I saw was exactly what I'd predicted. Mishandled communications, missed deadlines, clients growing increasingly frustrated with lack of attention. Harrison's newest big account, the one he'd bragged about, was already showing strain. He'd promised them personalized service, but then handed them off to junior staff. The client was sending increasingly sharp emails that were being ignored. Classic mistake. Promise everything. Deliver minimum effort. Hope reputation carries you through. It wouldn't, not anymore. The market was changing. Clients had options now. They didn't have to tolerate mediocre service just because a company had a prestigious name. I positioned myself as the alternative they didn't know they needed. Professional, attentive, genuinely invested in their success. I wasn't flashy like Harrison. I didn't make grand promises or show up in expensive suits to impress people. I just did exceptional work consistently, responded to emails within hours, delivered ahead of deadlines, actually listened when clients talked. Revolutionary concepts, apparently. Word started spreading quietly. There's this consultant, Isla Ray Collins, she's incredible, actually cares about the work. Exactly the reputation I wanted. Not the loudest voice in the room, just the most reliable one. My second client came through a referral from Dante. His colleague at another company was looking for exactly what I provided. We met, I presented my approach, and she signed within a week. Then a third client appeared, then a fourth, each one a careful addition to my growing foundation. I was at a small industry networking event when it happened, the first public recognition. A potential client I'd been courting mentioned my name to her colleague within Harrison's hearing range. Isla Ray Collins? Oh, she's fantastic, really knows her stuff. I was across the room, but I saw Harrison's head turn, saw him process the name. His eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on me. Recognition flashed across his face, followed quickly by confusion. What was I doing at an industry event? Wasn't I supposed to be gone, broken, disappeared? I smiled politely and turned back to my conversation, dismissing him completely. Let him wonder. Let him question. I wasn't the desperate, humiliated woman who'd walked out of his office anymore. I was someone else entirely. Someone he was just beginning to realize might be a problem. That night, a former colleague texted me. Harrison asked about you today, seemed bothered. What are you up to? I replied simply, just working. The truth, but not the whole truth. Not yet. Momentum built faster than I'd projected. By month 4, I had 7 clients, all of them happy, all of them referring others. My revenue wasn't massive yet, but it was growing steadily and sustainably. More importantly, my reputation was growing. People talked about quality of work, reliability, genuine care for client success. Harrison's company was still bigger, still more visible. But visibility doesn't mean stability. I started hearing concerning rumors. A major project had gone severely over budget. A client had publicly complained about poor communication. Staff turnover was increasing. Good people were leaving, frustrated by Harrison's management style. Meanwhile, my tiny operation was thriving precisely because I did everything he didn't. I hired carefully, just 2 people initially, both excellent, both treated with respect. We worked as a real team, not a hierarchy. Everyone's input mattered. Everyone shared in our successes. I secured a particularly significant client that month, a company Harrison had pursued aggressively and lost. They chose me specifically because, in their words, you actually listened to what we needed instead of telling us what we should want. That quote became my unofficial motto. Harrison was definitely aware of me now. I'd hear through the grapevine that he'd mentioned new competition in meetings. He hadn't said my name yet. Maybe he still didn't realize. Maybe he was in denial. Either way, his window to respond effectively was closing. Not everything went smoothly. In month 5, a potential major client questioned my credibility during our presentation. You're relatively new to independent consulting, he said, his tone skeptical. How do I know you can handle something this complex? The old me might have gotten defensive, might have felt that familiar shame of being questioned, but I wasn't that person anymore. I met his eyes calmly and smiled. That's a fair concern. Let me show you something. I pulled up case studies from my recent work, detailed documentation of complex projects I'd managed successfully, client testimonials, measurable results. I didn't just tell him I was competent. I proved it with data, with evidence, with the kind of thorough professionalism that left no room for doubt. His expression shifted as he reviewed my materials. "This is impressive work," he admitted. "Very thorough." By the end of the meeting, his skepticism had transformed into genuine interest. 2 weeks later, he signed a contract. That experience taught me something crucial. I didn't need to be defensive about being new or small. I needed to be excellent. Excellence speaks for itself. Every doubt was an opportunity to demonstrate capability. Every question was a chance to show why clients should choose me over established competitors, especially over Harrison. The turning point came in month 6. A major project, the kind that could make or break a small firm, became available. A regional healthcare network needed a complete operational restructuring. The scope was massive. The timeline was tight. The client was demanding and detail-oriented. Harrison's company had handled their previous project and botched it badly. Deadlines missed, budget exceeded, final product barely functional. The client was furious and looking for alternatives. This was exactly the kind of opportunity I'd been positioning myself for. I prepared for that pitch meeting like my entire future depended on it, because it did. I spent a week researching their organization, identifying specific pain points, crafting solutions tailored to their exact needs. My presentation wasn't generic. It was personal, detailed, and demonstrated deep understanding of their challenges. The 3-person decision committee listened intently, asked hard questions, tested my knowledge. I answered everything confidently, backed by research and experience. At the end, the director leaned back in her chair. "You've clearly done your homework, Ms. Collins." "Your success is my success," I replied simply. "That's how I approach every client." They deliberated for 2 days that felt like years. Then the call came. We'd won the contract. 6 figures, 6 months. The biggest project of my career. I actually cried after hanging up. Success attracted attention. Not all of it good. One of my team members, someone I'd trusted, accidentally mentioned client details to a former colleague who still worked for Harrison. It was innocent, just casual conversation at a coffee shop, but information leaked regardless. Suddenly, Harrison knew specifics about my operation, which clients I had, what projects I was working on. He started making moves, called my clients directly, offering them preferred rates to come back. Sent aggressive marketing emails highlighting his company's established reputation and resources. I could have panicked, could have felt betrayed by my team member's mistake. Instead, I recalibrated strategically. This was actually an opportunity. Harrison showing his hand revealed his desperation. He was threatened enough to act defensively. That meant I was winning. I called each affected client personally. Didn't badmouth Harrison or show fear. Just calmly reaffirmed our commitment to their success and reminded them of the results we delivered. "I know you're receiving other offers," I said to each one. "I respect your need to evaluate all options. All I ask is that you judge us by our work, not by marketing promises." Every single one stayed with me, not because I pressured them, because they'd experienced the difference between my service and Harrison's. My calm, professional response to his aggressive tactics actually strengthened client relationships. His desperation had backfired spectacularly. Recognition came from unexpected places. A major industry publication ran a feature on emerging firms disrupting traditional consulting models. My company was prominently featured. They interviewed several of my clients, who praised our innovative approach and exceptional results. The article included a photo of me in my small office, surrounded by whiteboards covered in strategic planning. I looked confident, professional, and completely in control. The caption read, "Isla Ray Collins proves that quality and attention matter more than size and reputation." The article went viral within industry circles. My website traffic exploded. Inquiries flooded in. Established professionals reached out to congratulate me or ask about collaboration. It was surreal. Just months ago, I'd been walking out of Harrison's office in humiliation. Now I was being recognized as an innovator. Harrison saw the article. Of course he did. Everyone saw it. Former colleagues told me he'd printed it out and spent an entire meeting trying to dismiss it as fluffy journalism that didn't reflect real business success. But his private panic was obvious. His company wasn't getting positive press. Mine was. The balance of power was shifting visibly now. I was no longer the underdog quietly building in shadows. I was a recognized competitor. And Harrison, for perhaps the first time in his career, was genuinely worried about losing his position. Harrison's next move was predictable and desperate. He tried to poach my clients aggressively, offering them deals that were probably unprofitable just to win them back. He sent his salespeople to their offices, made personal calls, promised everything imaginable. But I had anticipated this exact strategy. When I'd signed contracts with my clients, I'd included specific terms that made switching complicated and expensive for them. Not in a manipulative way, in a mutually beneficial way. We'd structured projects with milestone-based deliverables that incentivized completion. Breaking contracts early meant losing significant value. More importantly, I'd built genuine relationships. My clients weren't just paying for services, they were partnering with someone who genuinely cared about their success. That kind of relationship isn't easily broken by aggressive sales tactics. Harrison managed to schedule meetings with 3 of my major clients. All 3 listened politely to his pitch. All 3 declined and immediately called me to reaffirm their commitment. One of them even said, "He seemed desperate, honestly. Made me appreciate working with you even more." Harrison was blindsided. He'd assumed clients were transactional, whoever offered the best deal won. He didn't understand that people value consistency, trust, and genuine care. His entire strategy was built on assumptions about business that were increasingly outdated. While he was chasing flashy deals, I was building lasting partnerships. The opportunity I'd been waiting for arrived in month 9. One of Harrison's oldest, most valuable clients, a client he'd personally managed for years, needed a major strategic overhaul. Their business was struggling, and they needed innovative solutions fast. They reached out to multiple firms for proposals. I learned about the opportunity through my network and immediately reached out. They were skeptical at first. I was newer, smaller, less established. But they agreed to hear my pitch. I prepared for 2 solid weeks, researched every aspect of their business, identified not just surface problems but root causes, developed a comprehensive, innovative transformation plan. My presentation lasted 90 minutes. I didn't just pitch solutions, I demonstrated deep understanding of their challenges and provided a clear, actionable roadmap to success. The executive team asked sharp, difficult questions. I answered every one confidently, supported by research and strategic thinking. Harrison's pitch came 2 days after mine. According to someone on their team, it was generic, recycled from previous proposals, and showed minimal understanding of their specific situation. He relied on reputation and history rather than innovation and insight. They chose my plan. Not just chose it, praised it publicly as exactly the kind of fresh, strategic thinking we needed. Harrison's relationship with his oldest major client ended because he'd become complacent. I won it because I never stopped working to earn it. The conference was the biggest industry event of the year. Harrison was scheduled to present on a panel about excellence in client service. The irony was almost too perfect. I attended quietly, sitting near the back, just another face in the audience of hundreds. Harrison walked on stage looking confident and polished. He started his presentation with familiar platitudes about commitment and quality. But questions from the audience quickly turned uncomfortable. Someone asked about his company's recent client losses. Another questioned his response to emerging competition. Then someone mentioned the project that had failed for the healthcare network, the one I'd won. "How do you address public criticism about that outcome?" Harrison stumbled, made excuses, blamed the client for changing requirements. His defensive, dismissive responses made everything worse. Social media erupted during and after his talk. People criticized his arrogance, his refusal to take responsibility, his outdated attitudes. Industry professionals who'd respected him for years started questioning his competence publicly. His presentation had become a public embarrassment. I watched from the back, feeling no joy, only quiet satisfaction. This wasn't something I'd caused. This was simply natural consequences of his own actions catching up with him. Years of cutting corners, dismissing feedback, and treating people poorly had accumulated into this moment. He'd done this to himself. My client base expanded rapidly after the conference. The contrast between Harrison's public stumble and my growing reputation was stark and obvious. 15 clients by month 10, 20 by month 11. Revenue was genuinely substantial now. I moved into a real office space, hired 5 more excellent people, and formalized our operations. Former colleagues from Harrison's company started reaching out. Some wanted jobs, others just wanted to congratulate me. Everyone had stories about Harrison's increasingly erratic behavior. Apparently, he was obsessive about tracking my company, mentioning me constantly in meetings, blaming me for his problems. I didn't gloat, didn't spread gossip, just kept working with professional dignity. My reputation grew specifically because I focused on excellence rather than drama. Industry leaders started approaching me for advice. Speaking invitations arrived. My company was becoming genuinely respected. Harrison grew increasingly isolated. Key staff members left. Long-term clients quietly switched to competitors, many to me. His board apparently held emergency meetings about declining performance. The empire he'd built through charisma and aggression was crumbling because it had never been built on solid foundations. Meanwhile, everything I built was solid, sustainable, based on real value and genuine relationships. The difference was becoming impossible to ignore. I wasn't just competing with Harrison anymore. I was objectively surpassing him. Month 12 brought the opportunity I hadn't even dared to imagine. I officially registered my company as a full corporation, hired a small but excellent team, secured an office space that actually felt professional. We weren't just surviving anymore, we were genuinely thriving. Clients began migrating to us independently, without any recruitment effort on my part. They'd heard about our work through industry channels and reached out directly. My calendar was booked months in advance. We had to start turning down projects because we couldn't handle more volume without compromising quality. The growth was careful and intentional. I could have expanded aggressively, hired rapidly, chased every opportunity. But I'd learned from watching Harrison's mistakes. Sustainable success meant maintaining quality while scaling thoughtfully. Every new hire was carefully selected. Every client was genuinely right for our model. Every project received full attention. Harrison's company, meanwhile, was bleeding clients. Industry reports noted their declining market share. Financial analysts questioned their viability. Former employees shared stories about chaos and poor leadership. His reputation was dissolving rapidly. I received a call from a business acquisitions firm. They'd noticed my company's rapid growth and Harrison's decline. "There might be an interesting opportunity developing," they said cryptically. "Would you be interested in discussing strategic expansion?" I agreed to meet. My hands didn't shake anymore. I was ready for whatever came next. The collapse happened faster than anyone expected. Harrison's arrogance and failures culminated in a devastating combination: a major lawsuit from a client whose project had failed spectacularly, significant debt from overexpansion, and a board vote of no confidence. Within 3 weeks, everything unraveled. The news broke publicly. Prominent consulting firm faces financial crisis and potential bankruptcy. Industry publications dissected what went wrong. The analysis was brutal and accurate: poor leadership, cutting corners, ignoring client needs, building success on reputation rather than substance. I read the articles quietly in my office, feeling strangely empty. This should have felt like victory, like justice. Harrison had humiliated me publicly, tried to destroy my career, and now faced the consequences of his own actions. But looking at the wreckage of his company, I mostly felt tired. This wasn't about revenge, I realized. It never had been. This was about proving to myself that I could build something real, that my worth wasn't defined by someone else's opinion, that talent and dedication and genuine care for quality actually mattered in the long run. Harrison never contacted me directly, but mutual colleagues said he watched everything happen with increasing desperation. His empire crumbled while mine grew. The reversal was complete and public. Poetic justice delivered not through sabotage or revenge, but through simple, persistent excellence. My company continued thriving. We hit 30 clients by month 15. Revenue exceeded my most optimistic projections. Industry recognition became routine, awards, speaking invitations, consulting requests from major firms. We'd become exactly what I'd envisioned that desperate night at my kitchen table, a company built on genuine value and authentic relationships. I stood in our new office one evening after everyone had left. The space was modern and professional. Photos of successful projects lined the walls. Our team had grown to 12 people, everyone excellent, everyone treated with respect and given opportunities to excel. I thought about the person I'd been 18 months ago, trembling in that conference room while Harrison laughed, walking out with nothing but shame and anger, sitting at home with $47 wondering how to survive. That version of me felt like a stranger now. I didn't just survive, I whispered to the empty office. I built something better than he ever could. It was true. Harrison's company had been large but hollow. Mine was smaller but solid, built on principles he'd never understood: respect, quality, genuine care for people. The journey had been exhausting and terrifying and absolutely worth it. Every late night, every risk, every moment of doubt had led here, to something real, something mine, something no one could take away. The final chapter wasn't dramatic. It was quiet and certain. Harrison's company was eventually bought by a larger firm and absorbed completely. His name disappeared from industry conversations. People stopped asking about him. He became irrelevant, not through malice, but through natural obsolescence. I received occasional updates through mutual connections. Apparently, he'd tried consulting independently but struggled to attract clients. His reputation never recovered. People remembered the arrogance, the failures, the public collapse. Nobody forgot. My company continued growing steadily. We maintained our commitment to quality and genuine client care. The industry recognized us not as the firm that replaced Harrison's company, but as something better, something built on authentic values and sustainable practices. I never contacted Harrison, never gloated, never even mentioned him publicly. There was no need. The results spoke for themselves. His prediction that I'd come crawling back had been so catastrophically wrong it was almost funny. I hadn't just survived leaving, I'd flourished specifically because I left. Reflecting on everything, I understood the real lesson. Know your worth. Walk away from people who diminish you. Don't beg for scraps from someone who can't see your value. Instead, build something so undeniably excellent that the world has no choice but to recognize it. Harrison thought I'd beg for my job back. Instead, I built an empire that made his irrelevant. That's not revenge. That's just justice delivered through excellence. And honestly, that's so much more satisfying than any dramatic confrontation could ever be. The best response to someone who underestimates you isn't anger. It's simply proving them catastrophically wrong through your success. Let your achievements do the talking. Trust that quality and integrity eventually win. And never, ever let someone else define your worth or your future. Harrison taught me that lesson. And for that, in a strange way, I suppose I should thank him.